Okay, welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I come from the acting background.
And I'm Josh Knapp. I'm a broadcast engineer.
Here we go.
All right. Today we're going to talk about Best Supporting Actors, but before that, I was just going to give a quick update on my 31 movies in 31 days for October. I did see some movies over the weekend, not as many as I'd hoped, but...
You keep saying that, but you don't seem like you're that far behind. You're only...
Well, I've only, counting it up, I had to finish one up, which was Certified Copy. It's a French movie with Juliette Binoche.
Oh.
We were talking about Juliette Binoche, and it was a movie that I'd heard about, and it was a perfect mate to the next movie the movie that I saw right before that, which was Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which was one of the ones that you recommended to me.
Mike Nichols.
Yeah, it was Mike Nichols, and it definitely felt like a play. Could have definitely gone...
Okay, wait, just hold a second. Go back to the Juliette Binoche film first, because I don't know anything about this.
This movie you shouldn't know anything about.
Okay.
I think it would be better. It would hit you better if you don't know anything about it.
Year and time frame?
It's present day.
Okay.
And she goes out with a author.
Okay.
When
was it released?
2010, 2011.
Okay, so just a couple years ago.
Yeah,
she's done a lot of work recently, and I have not seen any of it because they've all been like that Clive Owens film, sleepers, if you will. I don't really like that term, but I get why people use it.
Yeah, it's 2010. So and so there's a particular aspect to this movie that's a little bit off kilter, and it doesn't show up until a little bit into the movie. Maybe I think it's like 30, 40 minutes into the movie, but it's still a pleasurable movie up until then.
And why did you pick this?
Because I'd heard about it in the past. Like I heard a podcast on it after it came out, and I just never got around to it. It was on Netflix Watch Instant, and then I knew that there was a similarity to Virginia Woolf, and we'd also talked to about Juliette Binoche. That would be cool to talk to Juliette Binoche.
Oh. I don't know, man. I could pretty much talk to anybody. I don't know. I would be like, what do I say? I don't want to gush. I don't want to act like, goofy fanboy, but her work is impressive. And has been since I've been paying attention to her. I mean, this is going on 20 years now, too, if not more.
And this movie is basically her and this actor. It's just them together. And they interact with other people, but it's basically just a conversation between them. And it goes a few different places. And like I said, I don't want to ruin it, for lack of a better word, but it does meet up with Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf in a very specific way that we could talk about later on.
Scary, actually.
And it's a lot more. The demeanor of the movie is a lot nicer than Virginia Woolf. That was a hard movie to get through.
Yes, it was.
And I think it's one of those where I'm never going to see it again because I don't want to
live that life.
Yeah, and I don't want to put myself through that. And I was going through it, and I understood. Also, I mean, it's pertinent to our discussion today because George Segal was nominated for Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, which he should have been.
All four of them were.
And which is amazing. And
the two women won.
She won the Sandy Dennis one?
Yes, she did.
No.
Really? See, you don't really... You're very... Your acting choices or your actors that appeal to you fit your personality. You're not a very over-the-top personality.
But I loved Elizabeth Taylor in the movie. I mean, for what she did it right.
She was amazing.
She did it right.
She was amazing. And you can't take it away from her because she's drop dead gorgeous, and she gained like 45 pounds, which in Hollywood...
She gained 45 pounds for that role?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
She still looks very attractive in that.
And, they dark encircled underneath her eyes, and they made her look more haggard and older for the part.
And she had a little bit of gray in her hair, which it was hard to tell with black and white. But
she pulls it off, though. And she did what her husband at the time in the play and outside it,
Richard Burton?
didn't do. She has 2 Oscars. He never won one. He has like 8 or 9 nominations.
How? So that in some ways is similar because it's obviously a contentious relationship between the two, but it's similar to Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise in Eyes Wide Shut, where they were a married couple and they were in a movie about a married couple with issues, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
but I wonder what that
one's
did
way
to
more subtle.
I wonder what that did to their relationship, though, because obviously they got divorced. I don't know when they got divorced.
I think they got divorced and then they remarried again at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, something like that. I think he's one of the only ones she married twice. She has.
But didn't she have like 6 husbands or something?
Something like that. Yeah. Okay, but anyway, back to the play. First of all, Mike Nichols is extremely young when he directs this. Mm-hmm. He's a stage director at the time, and he's always been back and forth. We talked about him, and you're a big Graduate fan, so I say see anything that he's done, because when he puts his stamp on it, he's there, but he's not. He doesn't have, what do you call the director who creates the atmosphere and all that? What's that word?
An auteur?
Yes, he is, but I don't think you could match his films. Like,
he's
you
not
could,
a flashy auteur.
Yeah, you could say that's a Tarantino film in the first 5 minutes of any one of his movies. You could say that's a Fincher film, with the exception of a few. There's some that fall back on that. Paul Thomas Anderson. There's a tone and an attitude.
Yeah.
With Mike Nichols, there isn't.
Yeah, and I think in some ways you could call him an auteur, but he's an auteur that's very character focused, and I think that obviously comes from him coming from the theater background. But I'm just thinking of some scenes in The Graduate where they're not flashy, but there's like a point of view scene where Benjamin is walking out towards the pool, and there's all these people coming around him and just like talking to him, and there could have been he could have shot that as a third person type of a shot where you see him getting overwhelmed with all these people, but he decides to use a wide angle lens, all these people crowding around and putting you into that position.
It's better that way.
It's better that way. And it's character based as opposed to like, oh, I'm going to do this amazing crane shot instead.
Right.
It has nothing to do with that.
Well, let me ask you this, and then we can move on if you want. But what do you think it is about Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf that people everywhere, theaters everywhere, can constantly do this play? It's in somebody's lineup almost every year. So is it because there's such well-drawn characters? Is it because there's so much drama in it? What is it that once I was in, I wanted out. Mm-hmm. We had to study it in school, so I was familiar with the script, but I had never seen it done before. Strangely enough, we had to design some stuff for some costume class that I was taking for it, and do the whole breakdown, get the material and all that other stuff. Way out of my wheelhouse, but I did it. I did okay. But you had to read the script and base it on that and all that other stuff. Then I saw it, and I was like, oh, I don't want in this ever again, ever. It's awful.
It is, but I think that, so I wonder if it has anything to do with society back then and how like people didn't like lay out their family problems or relationship problems to guests, and then you see this couple just like laying it all out there at 2 a.m. to these people who they don't even know, who they have to entertain because of Elizabeth Taylor's dad is the head of the
and
university.
He works for the school. Richard Burton.
Exactly. So maybe it's like it's just a bald relationship, just a raw relationship, just laid out for these people and also laid out for the audience, and maybe that's something that wasn't done. I mean, now there's a little bit more. I think that analysis, as it was called back then, I guess, but going to a therapist is more normal now, or more accepted now, and that's probably what they would at least try if that was those two characters nowadays. But back then maybe that wasn't even an option, or maybe they didn't even think about that. And so you're getting to see maybe everybody's thinking like, oh, I think that's what our next door neighbors are going through, or I think I think it's I don't know.
I think it taps into one thing, and I think Eyes Wide Shut is a very interesting comparison, because that movie is about what's not being said between two people who are quote unquote in love, in a relationship, in a marriage. And I find it fascinating that most of our relationship films are about what people don't say to each other. Mm-hmm. So Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton have this secret, another finger quotes, that isn't revealed, and they use it to manipulate each other in this situation with Sandy Dennis and George Segal. But it's really what has bonded them and kept them together this whole entire time, because people stay in committed relationships that are unhealthy all the time. Mm-hmm. So I think it examines that on a big level, because the younger couple, of course, is the younger, new, upcoming couple, just got married. They just, aren't they off? Didn't they just come off their wedding anniversary or something like
sure.
that.
They are a young couple though,
and he just gets the job there.
He just got the job. Yeah. So
it's fascinating.
It's
I'm glad you saw it. Though.
Yeah, and I mean, so I say it's a great movie in that it is a unique movie, and it is I've not seen any other movies that delve into that deeply and have that much of a. It's an emotional reaction, but it's not a cathartic emotional reaction. It's not a crying or laughing. It's just a stewing of just awkward emotions.
Big time.
And the scene, and you're living in it. That's a good.
Yeah, the scene, and we'll move on. The scene when she takes George Segal upstairs, and all you see is the light come on in the bedroom. Mm-hmm. And Richard Burton sitting outside. There's not one person in the theater, inside the play, or anybody who cannot just feel run down the street, dude, get away, run away. And you're thinking, what is she actually doing up there? And your mind takes over. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to go there. It's one of those ones I'll probably explore again, but not anytime soon. I'm in too good of a mood recently.
And I saw a few other movies. I saw a couple of really good 30 for 30 documentaries. It's an ESPN commissioned these movies a few years ago on their 30th anniversary. We've talked about some of them. Yeah, you
told me about that.
They just came out with some new ones on Netflix, and I watched them. One was actually about the NC State basketball team, which in 1983 they won the national championship, and it was a definite, underdog situation. I mean, it's an amazing story. And it's very emotional for multiple reasons. Their coach died of cancer. Jim Valvano died of cancer about 8 years later. He started a cancer research foundation and all kinds of stuff. And they talk about all that during this. It's like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes long. It's a full movie, so I counted it as one of my movies.
Yeah, absolutely. It counts. It counts.
Yeah,
just because it's a documentary doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and so I would definitely recommend that people check out those documentaries. Even if you're not a sports fan, this one it's called Survive in Advance, and it's a great story.
Instant watch, Netflix?
Yeah, Netflix Instant Watch.
We talked about this on the sports episode. There's something about sports films and sports documentaries. I don't care if you're a sports fan or even care any bit about sports. There's something about the tone of sports movies and documentaries just hits the soul.
It does.
They're all human-based. That's why.
Exactly. And it's real, too.
Yeah.
And I think that right there is perfect because I watched that on Sunday, and on Saturday we went to the movie theater and watched Fury with Brad Pitt and Shia LaBeouf and a bunch of other guys.
Michael Pena. Yeah. And what's the guy?
John Barenthal.
Yeah. I can never remember his name for some reason.
Yeah, and Logan Lerman was the
younger kid. Yes, who I was predicting good things for. And start with the positive. We spoke after the film for quite a while about this movie, and I loved it. It's going to be on my top 10 list of this year, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think so for me too. Yeah.
I bought it hook, line, and sinker. There was the one thing that I thought from our first conversation about this that I wanted to make a point about on this episode was that this story's been told before, but not this way. This one does it in a different way. First of all, it's about a tank crew. I didn't know anything about. I've never seen a film about a tank crew, or what do you call them?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a platoon, which is probably about 4 tanks, and then within, I guess they'd be considered a squad.
Okay, a squad. Okay,
yeah.
I've never seen that.
But it's all the guys in one tank.
Yeah, and all the characters have been thinking a lot about it, which is always a good sign for me. It's a compliment from me. I can't get it out of my head for lots of different reasons, but they're pretty stock characters. You got the Brad Pitt character who knows the knowledge, and he's the war veteran. Even if this is his first war, he's the leader. You've got the new guy who is so shiny around the cheeks that he doesn't know anything, and he's going to put everybody in jeopardy. You've got the Shia LaBeouf character who is the preacher man, if you will. And then you have the over-the-top guy, John
Barenthal.
Yes, I can't remember his name. I feel so disrespectful because I like his work a lot. But anyway, his character's that kind of over-the-top buffoon, if you will. We've seen all these characters before.
Southern hick type buffoon, yes.
But the way that the gentleman who directed it shot it, and some of the different shots that were in that film, I'd never seen things like that before. We talked about Saving Private Ryan, which is, of course, a great comparison because, it is the end all be all of epic battle scenes in the beginning of he pulls no punches in the opening. And this guy did the same thing, but he did things that were graphic that you knew happened on some kind of level, but you'd never seen them before. And those are hard to pull off, and cannot give anything away without complete spoilers. But there's a few graphic things that happen, violence that happen, that you're thinking, oh yeah, that makes sense. That would happen, especially with a tank. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah,
okay,
definitely.
Yeah,
and it's not graphic, and then it's like, oh man, did you see
no,
that? Check
not
that
at
out.
all. It's
was
like
the other way. It was like,
that's
wow,
what
this
they
is
saw.
real.
Yes. And before I say the last thing about this film, because it's going to come up again, I will say, and you know this because we spoke, I was so impressed by Shia LaBeouf. I cannot say enough about him. I will go on record right now saying he deserves an Oscar nomination. You saw my reaction to him after the film. He touched me, and he has the weepy part, and he has the teary part, and he has all that emotional part. But
the parts that you were talking to me about, and specific on the movie, were not the weepy, teary parts. It was the more reserved, like
his last speech it's top-notch acting. And I said this to you, and I'll say it on record. I hope whatever he's going through, he gets it together in his life, because he needs to be respected and taken seriously as an actor. And I think his personal life in the society that we're in right now can kind of overshine that stuff. And especially with the politically driven Oscars. And you've never heard me say that before. I mean, I know that part of the Oscars exists. I know it's, it's a show. It's a broadcast advertisement for the movies. I know it's a popularity contest on some level. But once we get into this category today, you'll see why I've picked the ones that I've picked. And most of them have touched me in a way that other performances don't, and they stand out. And because of their personalities, they might not have won, or they might have won, whatever. They might have been the popular vote. I hope that doesn't distract people this year. I hope he stays clean, stays out of the public's eye, and people take him seriously, because he deserves an Oscar nomination, hands down. And so does Brad Pitt, and so does the film, and so does the director. I'm on record.
All right.
I feel much better all of a sudden. I do. I feel relieved. I don't know why. It's stupid, but it is what it is.
Well, I mean, now's as good a time as any to get into the Best Supporting Actor. Speaking of your Best Supporting Actor nomination,
I'm hoping.
Shia LaBeouf.
I hope it's a possibility. Yeah. I mean, it's more than a possibility in my eyes. And normally, I have this feeling that comes over me when I'm watching something, and I don't put a definition on it until after the film, so I don't pull myself out of the film. But that feeling has inevitably led that person to an Oscar nomination. I'm not saying that I mindfully forced it to happen, but there's something in the consciousness of me when I go to the films. I saw it with Robin Williams with Good Will Hunting. I saw it with Whoopi Goldberg with Ghost. And people called me crazy back then. They were like, Ghost, whatever. It's a throwaway movie. I'm telling you. I had the same feeling about Shia LaBeouf.
All right. Well, great. All right. Well, we're going to kind of do the same thing that we did with the Best Supporting Actresses, is that just kind of go through. I mean, I've got kind of a rough, top 5 type thing, but I mean, I think it'd be better to just go through and kind of talk about our favorite performances, who was nominated and who won, and kind of talk about which performances we thought should have been nominated or should have won over the other ones. And I just kind of started from as earliest as I could remember.
Yeah, me too.
There's a lot of movies on here. Same thing with the actresses that I never saw.
I do want to say something about that. When I was looking at the list, when I did that for the supporting actress, I was like, oh, he's got to see that. Oh, he's got to see that. Oh, he's got to see that. This one doesn't have that many early films, and I've seen quite a few of them that I was saying to myself, okay, if Josh hasn't seen this, he should see this. There's not as many until 1955, 54, and then it starts for me. And then there's a few on here that if you haven't seen are a must-see for you.
Did you see any of the Walter Brennan movies?
No, he won like 3 times in it.
3 times,
yeah, but that was early on.
Yeah, it was like the late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's pretty amazing that especially in the studio system back then, that he's constantly recognized. Because I'm sure he was doing probably 3 movies a year or something.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not. I mean, as far as sheer volume, he obviously had a better chance than than somebody today.
And it being new, and it being,
That's true.
people usually vote for the same person the next year, that kind of thing. But yeah, he made me, after researching this, he made me want to go and see his films, because I did notice he's 3 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the other thing that I didn't know, is that they weren't giving out Academy Awards for Best Supporting until, I guess, a few years into the Academy Awards. So they didn't even really recognize it until later on. So that was kind of interesting to me. But
I'm wondering what the the thought process was, that they went, okay, well, that person's really not the lead, but they should be recognized too. How that subcategory broke off.
Well, and the other thing, Walter Brennan was nominated in 1941 for Sergeant York, so he was in that movie too, which I've definitely heard about.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the person who won was Donald Crisp for How Green Was My Valley. That movie also won the Best Picture award against Citizen Kane and against, wasn't it against? No, it was just Citizen Kane, I guess. Because the other two were in.
Well, there were like 10 of them that
39.
year.
Yeah, but still, I mean, and Maltese Falcon, that's the other one.
Oh.
So it beat out both of those movies. And so that makes me want to see How Green Was My Valley even more.
I've seen it.
Is it good?
That's a hard thing to talk about, because after Citizen Kane and Maltese Falcon, it's one of those ones that you go back and you go Gladiator.
Yeah.
Okay, you've seen Gladiator, so it's a good movie, but it beat out Traffic. It beat out, I can't remember specifically, but what it beat out, it was like Driving Miss Daisy. It's a great movie, but it beat out Field of Dreams, Born on the 4th of July. I can go on. I know this one, it sticks. But yeah, I see where you're going with this. How Green Is My Valley is good. It's not, I probably will never see it again. Yeah. Unless it comes upon me somewhere, and then who knows? But I will see Citizen Kane again. Yeah. I will see Maltese Falcon again.
Exactly. So yeah, that, just as far as the early ones are concerned, I mean, I really don't really have much to say about those. Claude Rains is in there a few times. Yep. I mean, he was in Casablanca. Nominated for that. Nominated for Notorious. You've seen that movie?
Yes.
Yeah, and that was a fun
Just
movie
recently
too.
saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that it was a good. I mean, and I love Ingrid Bergman. And
I find him more interesting in that film than I do in Casablanca. He's sort of a throwaway. He's a presence. Yeah. There's something, he vibrates on a different level. So I think that's why your eye goes to him. But he doesn't do anything. No. He gives Humphrey Bogart a break. He gives him a break. That's it. I mean, not taking anything away from him.
Yeah. The first one that I wanted to talk about was Walter Houston in Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Yeah.
Have you seen that movie? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes. I have been, strangely enough, and I'm going to use that word very loosely this time, I was imitating We Don't Need No Stinking Badges today.
Where are you?
All day long. And I'm not going to do it for you. And I'm not going to do it on a recording because it's borderline disrespectful. But no, that's one of my buddy's favorite. That's my best friend's favorite movie. They can imitate it from top to bottom. Fred C. Dobbs. Yeah, they go off on that film. So yes, I have seen that. And strangely enough, twice used, Humphrey Bogart was not nominated for that. How could he have not been nominated, and how could he not have won?
Yeah.
Okay, he won for The African Queen. Little side jump here, which I think he deserved it for. But Laurence Olivier won it for Hamlet. And here we go on record again. Nothing against Laurence Olivier. I think he's the weakest part of that movie, to be honest with you. I can't believe I just said that. He's not my favorite Hamlet. He's just not. I'm glad he won. He deserves an Oscar, but he beat out Humphrey Bogart for Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Anyway, Walter Brennan.
No, Walter Houston.
Yes, thank you.
And that performance, his performance specifically, but I mean all three of those performances of the main character. I mean, I would consider them all main characters once they get out to the silver mine, or is it silver?
No, it's gold.
It's gold. It is gold. Okay. Once you get out to the gold area where they're getting panning for gold, maybe it was something that, I mean, I haven't seen many movies from the 1940s, but similar to Virginia Woolf, maybe it's something that wasn't really brought up a lot, was the interaction between these guys, and you wouldn't even have really thought about greed, specifically greed in that situation. I guess we're kind of in the middle, in the 40s, we're kind of in the middle of this, noir type stuff. I mean, it started off with Double Indemnity, Maltese Falcon, and so you're kind of still in that mode. So you're used to seeing Notorious, yeah. So you're used to seeing that, but watching the dynamics, how they changed throughout the movie between these characters, it was great, and he was able to. he was able to I think bring something to, you wouldn't necessarily think of his character as something that would stand out, but it definitely did to me.
Well, I think the interesting thing about that is the fact that the other two characters go through so many levels, especially Humphrey Bogart. He goes on so many journeys in that film emotionally. Yep. Huston stays even. He has his reactions. He brings them up, he brings them down. He has his tone changes a little bit here and there, but he never has like a freak out, great dramatic scene. And I think amongst
he has the dancing scene.
Yeah, that. Yeah,
he's
of course.
Excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what I'm saying? Like maybe because he's such a ground for the other people who really start to lose it, and some of the other minor characters are exaggerated to the point of like we need no stinking badges. They're exaggerated to the point of caricature. So maybe being such a solid, anchor in the film makes that performance stand out. That's what it does for me.
Yeah, and but you can tell that that's what makes him different from the other guys. He's older, he's more, he's been through life more. And when they find him, he's in the same situation as, all three of these guys are in the same situation in this bunkhouse, basically, you know. So he's obviously not a successful businessman at the age of whatever, 65 or whatever, how old he is.
Yeah, it's a good win though.
Yeah. So did you want to bring anything up?
Not particularly about that. I start in 1953 with Frank Sinatra.
Okay.
But do we want to go back to something before that?
No.
Yeah. Have you seen From Here to Eternity?
I've seen about 3/4 of it, and then I stopped watching it. But it was
any particular reason?
No.
You kind of do that a lot.
Well, if it doesn't grab me, so that's the thing. So if I start watching a movie at night and it doesn't grab me to the point where like
you can't get through it.
Yeah, it's not that I can't get through it. It's that I'll fall asleep, or I'll be like I gotta do something else, and I'll move on, and then I just won't go back to it, and so nothing's like pulling me back. We're in the constant. In today's age, you've got so many choices. It's not like I go to Blockbuster and pick something. It's like it's all there. 3 channels. And
yeah.
But even Netflix, even if you don't have cable, it's all there. I can watch a million movies, and I have to say like I'm gonna block off this amount of time for this movie or whatever, and I haven't gone back to it because there wasn't anything that I saw Frank Sinatra. I saw his performance up to a certain point, but maybe I wasn't. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't getting what you got. Tell me why.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, that's fine. I've trained myself to get through things.
Yeah.
And this was not a particular one where I had to. I actually get what you're saying. I can see how it doesn't call back to you. It doesn't make you want to keep watching it. I get it. Mm-hmm. I wanted to see it because it's been so acclaimed. Mm-hmm. I wanted to see. Frank Sinatra. I wanted to see Montgomery Clift, who I love. I wanted to see how this movie played out, and I was blown away by it, not because of the way that the movie was done, but because this has been the film that has given us that love scene that everybody bases their love scene and she's a nymphomaniac who's cheating on her husband with her husband's coworker. That's
Burt Lancaster.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she's Carr. What's her
Deborah Carr.
Yes, thank you. I can't think of a name tonight. But she has like a psychological issue sleeping around, and I think they even use the word nymphomaniac. Yeah. And then you have the other lady. I can't think of a name tonight to kill Donna Reed.
Yes.
She's the Donna Reed show. It's a Wonderful Life. She's a prostitute in this movie. She's a call girl at a dance club. That's where Montgomery Clift and her meet. And I'm thinking to myself, wait, what's going on in this film? This woman's a nymphomaniac who's cheating on her husband with her husband's coworker, who are both in the military. Mm-hmm. Montgomery Clift is in the military, and he's a boxer, but he doesn't want to be a boxer. Yep. So he goes to look for some kind of outlet. So he finds himself at this dance hall, which happens to be a brothel with It's a Wonderful Life's wife in it. And I'm like, wait, this is...
So everybody's playing against type, basically.
Well, not only that, but this is the epitome of romantic love story back in the 50s, and it's a con. It's not this loving on the beach roll around. It's a con. It's in depth. The characters are written really deep. It's not a typical love story, and it's based on the Pearl Harbor and
World War II.
That's the backdrop for it. But here about Frank Sinatra. Enough about the movie. It's interesting. I say watch it if you like films. Mm-hmm. Frank Sinatra did this to me. I watched it thinking he won because he's Frank Sinatra and he's cool. Frank Sinatra just is cool. He's suave.
He's so skinny though.
He's young there. He's young there. Yeah, yeah. And can you imagine that's what he looked like on film? Can you imagine what he looked like in real life? Because they say 10 or 15 pounds is added to you on film. So
maybe.
Yeah.
Golly.
It's the drunk scene that he has. Did you see the scene? You might not have seen it, depending on.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Oh, is that when he comes in? It's when Montgomery Clift is with, or was it Burt Lancaster?
No, no.
He's with a woman, and then Frank Sinatra comes in.
Pretty much.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay. The quality of playing drunk can be very caricature driven instead of character driven, and he held it together so tight. I believed he was drunk. He didn't use the mechanics of being drunk to drive the scene. He used his emotions. And you saw this core of this really hurt guy who just wanted to be the friendly buddy. And on the outside, that's what he was to everybody, but nobody would take him seriously. And he's this little skinny guy that he's just like the guy who makes the jokes all the time, the guy who lightens up the load, and he's supposed to lighten up the load in this one scene. And he's so lit up, he's so drunk that he can't. I don't know, dude. It touched me. I was like, oh, Frank Sinatra really can act. He just didn't win the Oscar because he's cool. He's Frank Sinatra. Let's give it to the rock star. He won it because his acting quality is on point for me.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So that was 1953. In 1954, something interesting happened. 3 actors from On the Waterfront got nominated.
And not one of them won. It's happened before. It's happened after The Godfather. Part 2.
Okay. So you had
not true, because De Niro won.
Yeah.
So that's not true.
So you had Lee J. Cobb, Carl Malden, and Rod Steiger nominated for On the Waterfront. We already talked about On the Waterfront, so if you want to check that out, that was our first episode actually.
Yeah, all 3 of them are deserving of the nomination. Who won?
Amazing.
The guy from the Barefoot
Contessa.
Yeah, which I haven't seen.
I haven't seen either. So the next one I had written down. Let's see. Let me bring this up here. But I had George Kennedy on Cool Hand Luke. I mean,
let's just Josh puts everything on computer. I write everything down. Who's next on my list, Josh?
George Kennedy, Cool Hand Luke.
Yep.
So we'll talk about him for a little bit.
Amazing. He's amazing. He's one of those ones that you watch the movie and you think to yourself, gosh, he should have won the Oscar.
And he did.
And you find out he did. And you're like, yo, that's good.
Yeah. I mean, and that movie's great, top to bottom. But yeah, I mean, I think you've got the George Kennedy character dragline. Isn't that his character?
I can't remember now.
I think it's dragline.
Don't ask for me for references tonight.
That's a movie that has, to me, it's one of those, it's more infinitely watchable to me because it moves.
Yeah.
And even though it doesn't even have very many places or scenes. I mean, you got certain scenes that are just amazing, like when they finish the road early. Yeah. I mean, that whole scene. Yeah. It's so great. And
it's almost made for a movie. Like when it was written, you're thinking this is cinematic right here.
Yeah, and it kind of got ripped off, for lack of a better word, on Shawshank Redemption. Yeah. Well, for the roof, but
imitation is the highest form of flattery, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe it's not ripped off, but maybe it was a similar thing. But yeah, I mean, you get certain scenes like that in the egg scene. I mean, he's the driving force for that egg scene. I mean, Paul Newman's doing acting. He's doing busy work, shoving, eggs down his throat. But you've got George Kennedy driving this whole thing and supporting and slapping his belly and all this stuff.
And the way he's looking from the timer to his belly to his face to come on, and the way he's rubbing his
It's just great. And it's I mean that performance was definitely
You know what won
deserving.
the Oscar for me in that movie is when the lady's washing the car.
Oh, geez.
It could have been so overplayed. It could have been so over the top. Mm-hmm. But when he just, Lord, don't let me go. Don't strike me blind now, Lord. I was like, that's exactly what that guy would say in that moment. That's exactly. Mm-hmm. And he takes all of the tension of our voyeuristic need to be watching the girl do that ourselves as an audience member. Yeah. He takes it and wraps it all up in a bow and makes it perfectly okay for everybody to watch her too. Right. Because he's like, please, Lord, whatever you do, take me now, but don't blind me. Whatever you do. I love that.
No, that's great. That's great. So I also had written down after that in 1972, Joel Grey won for Cabaret, which I have seen, and it's a great character. And he did. He's kind of like the narrator
Yes.
I guess, for Cabaret. And that's a port over from a play or a musical.
Yeah, he won the Tony for it too.
Okay, so it's the same guy.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
But that same year is what Godfather 1.
Yes.
And so, which I think is definitely worth a talk at
James
least.
Caan.
Yeah, so you're right. None of them won that year.
No.
For Godfather 1. So there's three guys from Godfather got nominated: James Caan, Robert Duvall, and Al Pacino.
Oh, then it happened again for Godfather 2. I didn't realize that until you just said that.
And Al Pacino, I read something where he said he was like
he threw
mad.
a stink. Yeah, I think I told you that. I read something where he threw a stink because he should have been in the lead actor category. Now, when you hear something like that, you got to put it in perspective. Their name and their reputation is a paycheck for them. That's how they're valued. So when people hear stories, I didn't get an Oscar nomination, I got a supporting acting, he's absolutely correct in my opinion. He's the lead in that movie.
But is it the Academy's fault, or is it the Paramount or whoever
Apparently it's
released
the movie studios that put you in the category to be nominated.
Okay.
So that's why Nicole Kidman, who is really a supporting character, is in Best Actress and
For
won
what
The
movie?
Hours.
Oh, The Hours,
and
yeah.
also won. Same with Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. He's in 26 minutes of that movie when you put it all together.
Oh, and they put him in for Best Actor. Yeah,
Right,
anyway,
but there's a difference though here for me. Anthony Hopkins, without Anthony Hopkins, you could not do that movie.
That's true.
And because he was such a presence in that film, he was the lead. Michael, I was going to say Corleone, but Al Pacino, he is the lead in that because the story revolves around him. Without him, you cannot do the story. You can do it without Sonny, although I wouldn't want to see it without Sonny. You could do it without Vito. You could do it without, it depends on how you want to do it. But Marlon Brando's character really disappears halfway through the film. Yep. So I think it depends on the audience member how you want to judge it. Is it about length of time on screen, or is it about where your character? For me, a supporting character is a character that if you took their plot line out of the movie still could go, but with their plot line in it and with their performance, it became a different movie. George Kennedy.
Yeah.
Robert De Niro is my next one. Godfather 2. But yeah, so he threw a stink about not being nominated for Best Actor and didn't show up for the Oscars. I get it. I would still go. I mean, and I get why Brando won. But I guess people think Godfather, he's the Godfather, he should win. But anyway, so yeah, I think Joel Grey should have won over top of all of them. Maybe next to James Caan. James Caan would have given him a run for the money if I could check off the ballot. But Joel Grey doesn't really speak in that film. It's all song. He doesn't really.
Okay.
He doesn't really have He doesn't have speeches. He kind of speaks and sings, but
and the thing that kind of allowed me to kind of say I think he did deserve that Academy Award is that I don't go to the theater very much, but my wife and I saw Cabaret in, I think it was Las Vegas or something, or no, it was in Reno because we lived in Sacramento, and she wanted to go to the theater, and so we did that. She wanted to go see a musical, and so we saw Cabaret in Reno, and it was good, but the character of the MC was played by a guy who wasn't Joel Grey, obviously, right. And so I could compare those two performances, and it definitely elevated that particular portion of the movie versus the musical.
Well, first of all, I love that film. I love it, and it won Best Director, but not Best Picture. And Godfather won Best Picture, but didn't win Coppola his Oscar until Godfather Part 2. It won Bob Fosse his Oscar for Cabaret. That doesn't happen that often. The thing about Joel Grey's performance for me is every time he comes on the screen, you're like, oh, you breathe differently. The tone and temperature in the room changes. And he really never speaks. But you understand everything and everywhere he's coming from. I think it's a magnificent film. I think it's one of those films that if you haven't seen it, you should see it. It should be on your list of... And talk about top notch. Liza Minnelli is top notch in that film. Yeah. She really deserved that Oscar too.
Did you see The Last Detail?
No.
Okay, that's Jack Nicholson and Randy Quaid. They're in
Sailors?
the Navy.
Yeah, I actually seen part of it, but not the whole thing.
Okay, he was nominated. Randy Quaid was nominated for The Last Detail.
He's the only Quaid brother to be nominated.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And it was a good performance, but another movie I never finished. So I was going to ask you if I should finish that movie, but yeah, you haven't seen it.
I've seen some parts. I've seen his performance, and he seems like the over-the-top kind of best friend guy again. And good for him that he was nominated. I think it's cool that Randy Quaid, National Lampoon.
Yeah,
Randy
I know.
Quaid is an Oscar nominee. I love
right.
that. All bets are off. Dan Aykroyd is an Oscar nominee.
That's true.
I mean, all bets are off. When your performance is good, Shia LaBeouf, when your performance is on point, Shia LaBeouf, you will be nominated. It doesn't matter who you are. Yep. That's why I hope it doesn't rise above, or it rises above it this year, too.
In 1976, Jason Robards won for President, All the President's Men.
Yeah.
And that year, when you look at just the nominees, he went up against Burt Young and Burgess Meredith from Rocky.
Rocky, yeah.
And Ned Beatty
for
the
Network.
Network. And also Laurence Olivier for Marathon Man, which I saw that movie a long time ago.
Creepy movie.
It is. Now he's the one who said okay.
Yeah. There's an urban legend. I keep telling stories like they're for real, and then I listen to the podcast and I'm like, I'm not so sure that's for real, and I just acted like it was. The urban legend goes that Dustin Hoffman stayed up all night, starved himself, didn't sleep, didn't drink, dehydrated himself because he was supposed to be that way in the movie. And apparently he walked on set and said to Laurence Olivier, I've been up all night, I've been, method acting and blah, blah, blah. And apparently Laurence Olivier turned to him and said, why don't you just try acting it? So I don't know if that story's true, but it's a great story if you're in the theater. It makes a point. There are two different schools of thought.
Sure.
I believe in what Dustin Hoffman did, got him where he needed to go. And I believe Laurence Olivier could walk in drunk as a skunk and just act it. Peter O'Toole, Richard Harris. I saw Richard Harris do Camelot 8 times on stage. I was ushering in Norfolk, and I swear he was probably drunk 7 of the 8 times. He was better when he was drunk.
Wow.
He just seemed to be better. I don't know. And you could tell. You could hear the difference in his voice. Maybe if you hadn't seen it as many times in a row as I was blessed by seeing that, because I'm a big Camelot fan. I'm a big Richard Harris fan. And so when I did see that, I was like, oh, yeah, I think he's a big drunk, admittedly so. And Richard Burton too, all of them. But they can go out there and just hit their mark and say their line and pull in that performance. Maybe Dustin Hoffman couldn't. So I don't know if that story's true or not.
But that was a great year. I mean,
And I do want to say this. I hate to say this, but I actually think that Jason Robards, have you seen All the President's Men? I don't get why he won. Like, what's it about his performance? He plays a real guy.
Yeah.
They all do, obviously. But what is it that he did that was so critically acclaimed? And you're going to hate when I say next, too, because he won the following year. He has back-to-back Oscars for Julia. I don't get that one either.
I never saw that one.
I don't get it.
Well,
I love him.
And I think that we're comparing a kind of a consistent character, I guess, to like Ned Beatty, who was in, how long was he? He was only in that movie for one scene, basically. I mean, it was an impactful scene.
The conference room scene.
Exactly. Yeah. And so should they, or even the Burgess Meredith character, even the Pauly character, I mean, Burt Young's character in Rocky. I mean, those are both foils for Rocky to play against. And so, and they were both done. I mean, I felt like Burt Young is a naturalistic actor.
Right. I agree.
And it felt like a lived-in character. It felt like the guy came right off the street and lived it.
All of them from that movie.
And yeah, Burgess Meredith too. But I mean, he's got the baggage of being the Penguin, at least for me, being the Penguin and all that stuff. And so I'm making sure that he's not the Penguin.
Doesn't bother me a bit.
But he did. I think he did a great job. But yeah, the two that I remember the least about are the Jason Robards and Laurence Olivier.
There we go. I mean,
yeah.
Well, let's go back for just a split second, unless you wanted to say something else. Let's go back to Robert De Niro in 1974 in Godfather 2.
Yeah.
We're right around the same time. Here's what's interesting. We just talked about the straightforward character. The character doesn't have the over-the-top scene. Here, De Niro does the same thing. He doesn't really have a cry scene or a shouting scene or an angry scene or a Ned Beatty conference scene, for lack of, that should be our term now when we're talking about scene. Yeah, an over the top performance that really is handled well. The thing that I find interesting is that Coppola said that he didn't want to cast somebody who could imitate Marlon Brando younger. He wanted to cast somebody who could be Vito younger. Okay. That's why he cast Robert De Niro. And I think it was perfect casting. He's perfect. And yet again, part urban legend, but I think this is more true than not. My understanding is that Robert De Niro learned none of the language. He learned it phonetically.
Oh, wow.
He doesn't speak that language. and he only has 2 lines or 1 line. I'll make him an offer he can't refuse, is the only English that he speaks. It's one of the 5 or 6 non-speaking English roles that won the Oscar. Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro is all American, you know?
Why would he not learn the lines?
No. He learned the lines.
No, I know, but why would he not?
But he didn't learn a language. He learned how to speak it phonetically, the lines.
So, because I didn't notice that he didn't say things properly. I mean, because he obviously,
he doesn't really say a
people
lot.
Speak Italian.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But there's
Italian,
a way you can
think,
break it down phonetically and learn to sound like you're speaking the language when you're not.
Okay.
So he didn't learn Italian. He didn't learn how to speak it. He learned to break it down phonetically and learned to say hello phonetically in Italian, and then
recited it basically.
Yeah, and he did it convincingly.
Sure.
And it's a subtle performance, but he won his first Oscar for it. So, and that was a great year too. You know, that was a great year. So anyway, I just wanted to backtrack and give De Niro some props.
Definitely. In 1977, I just wrote this down. Obi-Wan Kenobi got a nomination.
People think I'm lying when I tell them that. People think I'm making that
up. I didn't know until
it was
I was
nominated for
doing the
Best
research.
Picture too and Best Director.
Wow.
They took that film seriously, and I believe Alec Guinness deserved the nomination. He is once again that presence that you can't put a word to it, that he just stands out, and he stood out as Obi-Wan. He had already won his Oscar for Bridge on the, Over the River Kwai. Bridge over the River Kwai. Yes, thank you. But so he already had an Oscar win, but I think he deserves it for Obi-Wan. He stands out when he comes to the screen. When he pops up on the screen, the movie takes a different tone and attitude because of his performance. But yeah, people are like, Obi-Wan Kenobi did not get nominated for an Oscar. I'm like, yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. And then Christopher Walken, Deer Hunter. I mean, he's not on my list of 5, but I mean, yeah.
Okay, so Christopher Walken's on my list too, because that movie is crazy great. The first time I saw it, I was like, I don't know if I wanted to see that. That's crazy.
Well, that movie, it starts so slowly. Oh my God.
It's beautiful too. Meryl Streep's great in that too.
Yeah, and it's fine, but it's like I knew so much about that movie as far as like the particular scenes that people talk about.
Yeah.
The Russian roulette scene and all that. But then you have like what seemed like an hour's worth of a wedding reception.
I loved it.
I don't know. To me, I
loved it.
And you know what? I saw it when I was in college, and I was like, what is going on here? It was just so... I need to revisit it.
See it again.
Because it felt like I was trudging through it.
Fair enough. I get what you're saying. Never had that experience, but I understand. There's I come from a big family. My mom is the youngest of 13 brothers and sisters. My sister is the youngest of 49 first cousins. We have a big, we have a big family. So I've been to those big weddings, and I've seen those drunk uncles at the bar. Yeah. Trust me, it's a blast. So I could kind of relate to that, but there's something about the nuances of all the characters. Here's the first guy I'm going to call as an Oscar miss, a missed Oscar nomination. How did John Savage not be nominated for Deer Hunter? That scene when De Niro and him are in the cage in the water, De Niro's saying, hold on. He's like, I can't do it, man. I can't believe he does not have an Oscar nomination for that performance. I get why Walken won. I get it. That Russian roulette scene is movie history. When you saw that scene, you're like, they're going to show this forever. Just like Leonardo DiCaprio in Wolf of Wall Street falling down those stairs. They're going to show that scene forever. Yeah. They're going to show it forever. It's classic movie making we saw it happen firsthand. Yeah. So I get the Russian roulette scene. I get the Christopher Walken scene. He makes the most change. I get it. But how was John Savage not nominated? Do you not agree?
No, yeah. I mean,
stunning performance. De Niro was nominated for lead actor in that. So go figure. I can't figure the nominations out sometimes because he is the lead, I guess. But
maybe it was I don't know if it was a name thing because Walken wasn't a huge name back then, was it?
No, De Niro had already won. Maybe none of them were really huge. And Meryl Streep, it's I think her first nomination.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, first of many.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah. And then Robert Duvall, Apocalypse Now, another Coppola movie.
And he's not in that film a lot.
No. I think 3 scenes? 2 or 3. It's either 2 or 3 scenes. It's the scene where he's trying to get the guy to surf, which is the,
hilarious.
Yeah. in that movie, it's funny, that portion of that movie, it kind of takes a break.
Yeah.
It gives you a break.
It has to.
Yeah.
It has to.
Yeah, and it feels Doctor Strangelove-ish. I mean, to me, it feels like this, like, these guys shouldn't be talking about this right now. This shouldn't actually be happening.
And then they play the music.
Yeah.
And then they surf, and you're like, wait a second. This is not right on any level. That whole movie, it's like A Clockwork Orange. I will watch Apocalypse Now again. Mm-hmm. I have seen it a couple times, but I have to be in the right frame of mind because first of all, how Martin Sheen wasn't nominated blows my mind, and Marlon Brando wasn't either. That blows my mind.
But see, from what I hear about his
we talked about
issues,
this. So what? So what?
That to me makes me like, just stop.
I get it,
and I know you're an actor, and I know you understand that maybe he may have been a.
I'm not rationalizing anybody's behavior. I'm basing it on the performance alone. One time I said, "Is this actress a better actress than this actress in some category?" to my buddy Terry, and he said, "Oh, we're not judging actress to actress. What we're judging is performance to performance in this year." Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay. So it doesn't matter that Jennifer Hudson was nominated against so-and-so. Is Jennifer Hudson a better actress? Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Jennifer Hudson was better in Dreamgirls than this other person. That's how he looks at it.
Sure, and
so
I would agree with that.
For me, I take myself out of, who cares about everybody was a pain in the ass in that movie.
Well, but at the same time, he was, all that stuff that he was talking about, the snail and the razor blade, that is his stuff. He didn't even read the script. So at what point is it a performance, and at what point is it just like, I'm in front of the camera, you better get this because I get paid for this, I'm leaving?
That's a really cynical way to look at that. Look what they got, though.
I know,
in the end, does it matter? If
you don't know about it, okay, so if you don't know about
it shouldn't bother you at all.
But if you do know about it, it does bother
So does somebody's political views change you from watching them as an actor?
It's not their political view, but it's him. He's there to act. I mean, I guess
he's there to put in a performance that gives the movie a character. And what did he do?
He gave the movie a character.
He's crazy
not the
great
character that Francis Ford Coppola
did anybody
necessarily.
Know Hopper was a pain in the ass, drugged up. Sheen didn't want to do it. Sheen was supposed to do full frontal in the beginning. He didn't want to do it. Mm-hmm. He purposely hides himself, and it's noticeable. Coppola was mad about that. There's a whole thing about that movie. Lawrence Fishburne lied. He was Larry Fishburne at the time. He lied about his age to get in. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody has a story about. I see what you're saying. I get it. For me, though, it matters not. In the end, when the lights came up, that's what we got.
Yeah. All right.
I see what you're saying, though.
I still enjoy the movie, but there's that baggage with it that I have to work through, I guess.
Yeah. So. I mean, it adds to it for me.
Mm-hmm. Timothy Hutton.
I'm confused about this one because he's the lead character. Yeah. He is. And Donald Sutherland's the supporting, and it should have been reversed. But Timothy Hutton wouldn't have won in that year.
That was my question for you.
Because
do you think he would have won?
No. But he's crazy great in Ordinary People, and I love that movie. And I have major debates with people about Raging Bull and Ordinary People all the time. Mm-hmm. They say it's a flip. They say there are a few years where they always say, oh, that should have won instead of this. Mm-hmm. Pulp Fiction instead of Forrest Gump. Goodfellas instead of Dances with Wolves, Raging Bull instead of Ordinary People. Notice the pattern here. Mm-hmm. First time directors up against Martin Scorsese, and Martin Scorsese loses. Yeah. And I agree with every Oscar pick. I think Ordinary People is ultimately, for me, I'm saying a lot of things recording that I don't think I ever want people to know. I really believe. But I actually think it's more interesting as a film for me than Raging Bull. It just is.
Do you feel like it should be elevated because it's a first-time director, Robert Redford?
No, okay. But that's that first time that he was behind the directing chair. Yeah. Dances with Wolves is Kevin Costner's first time behind a directing chair. That's pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. I mean, and he got that. For me, Robert Zemeckis isn't the first-time director for Forrest Gump, but I see why those films won over the other films. The other ones might stand the test of time longer, like Citizen Kane over Hal Green. Interesting comparison or analogy. It might stand the time better. Pulp Fiction might stand up better than Forrest Gump. But every time Forrest Gump is on, everybody I know watches it.
Yep.
I know people can't get through Pulp Fiction. I'm not saying anything. I love Pulp Fiction. Love it. It would have been a hard pick for me. But anyway, yes, I think that's why Timothy Hutton won supporting actor when he's the lead. There's no doubt in my mind he's the lead in that film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, my next on the list name is Louis Gossett Jr.
Interesting. He's the first African-American gentleman to win the Oscar at this point for Best Supporting
Actor. Supporting Actor.
Yep.
Okay.
The only other one at this time is Sidney Poitier. Mm-hmm. The only other one is Hattie McDaniel. That's it.
Before that, yeah.
Before that. Mm-hmm. 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's sad. It's really multiplied recently, and I'm really glad. And I don't think that should be a reason, but
and I think a lot of it has to do with the perception of what you need in a role. You know, when they look for a particular actor or actress to fill a role, are they looking for an African American actor? Are they looking for an actor? Like, there was nothing in Louis Gossett Jr.'s character that said he had to be white or black.
Right.
And it just happened that the actor who was hired to do that role was black.
Absolutely.
So,
I agree.
Which is perfect. I mean, it's great.
And he is great. That last scene when he gives, what does he give him? He gives him his medal or their pin.
Well, yeah, it's their rank.
Yeah,
so
okay.
they've graduated, for lack of a better word, the basic training.
That's an incredible moment of film right there. The look on his face, how he doesn't want to look, but he does look. And Richard, it's amazing.
Well, I mean, the fight scene between them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the scene in the mud where he
makes that scene work. I think Richard Gere kind of loses it a little. Fly jet, sorry. It's a little bit.
Yeah, but
overdrawn.
Haven't you ever been in a situation where whether it's an argument or whether it's something where you kind of just fly off the handle?
Yeah, but watch it again and watch the way he tries to pull it back in, where he loses
it.
You're
right.
Yeah.
And then he kind of comes
it's Louis
back.
Gossett Jr.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the fake crying.
Yeah. I like Richard Gere. I got nothing against him. But anyway, so Louis Gossett Jr.
Yeah, what about you?
Well, the next one on my list, strangely enough, is Denzel Washington.
Me too.
1989 Glory.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, and I read a lot of the history, because I have a couple of books on the Oscars, and I'll read these little snippets, and there's this one book that misses and hits and talked about, not talked about, talks about what happens backstage. They actually print your speech, that kind of stuff. And he was not really a front runner. He was not thought of to win, and I can't remember who he's nominated against at the time. Do you have that pulled up?
I do. I got to scroll down though.
Is it what's his name?
Danny Aiello.
Do the Right Thing.
Dan Aykroyd.
Right.
From Driving Miss Daisy. And Marlon Brando, A Dry White Season, which I've never heard of. And Martin Landau from Crimes and Misdemeanors, which I do not get.
Right. Well, here's the thing. In the end, the right person won because that performance in Glory outstands all of those other performances together.
Yep.
And it's not just the scene that we see over and over again with the one tear coming down his eye. It's when he takes that shirt off.
Yeah.
And it's not the back. It's not his back that impresses me. It's the anger and the defiance when he's like, okay, you want to whip me? Watch this. And he takes it off one sleeve and he shoves it down, and then he puts his hands up against the pole and he goes, now what are you looking at? You can see it in his eyes. And I was like, that guy's going to win the Oscar. Like, he wasn't on my radar. I was like, who is this guy? And then the tear happens.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't care if that was planted, manipulated, if he had to stick a pin in his side, because there's this Friends episode where Joey pinches himself inside his pants to cry or pulls hairs out of his legs or something like that. Yeah. I don't care what he did to get there. He got there.
Yep.
So 1989 Glory.
Well, and then that you see that movie, and then the next. I've never seen Philadelphia, and I don't know if I ever want to see Philadelphia. But the next time that I really saw that out of him was Training Day, that kind of intensity.
Hurricane.
Malcolm I don't
X.
remember that movie.
What?
I don't remember the Hurricane. I mean, I saw it, but I don't remember it, and I don't know why.
That's my eyeballs coming out. What are you talking about? If it wasn't for Kevin Spacey winning for American Beauty and being such a great film and being Kevin Spacey in American Beauty, I thought Denzel Washington should have won.
I remember that I was 18.
Okay, fair enough.
And I haven't gotten back to it. I mean, I was at the beginning of my movie watching career.
Not excused, but fair enough.
Fair enough. So, and then the next one is the next year, Joe Pesci for Goodfellas.
Yeah, but before we go there, I do want to talk about a missed Oscar nomination in 1986. I was looking at this. Dennis Hopper was nominated for Hoosiers in 1986. He should have been nominated for Blue Velvet. Have you ever seen Blue? We've never brought up David Lynch yet. Maybe a couple of times or maybe somewhere, but he's an interesting one there, David Lynch.
Yeah,
But have you seen Blue Velvet?
I've seen Blue Velvet. I've seen Wild at Heart.
Okay.
That's crazy.
There you go.
So
You've
Blue
got
Velvet is actually very palatable to me compared to compared to Wild at Heart. There's some crazy scenes, but you're right. I mean, his scenes in Blue Velvet are memorable.
Often imitated too. I mean, when you see somebody put their hand to their mouth and breathe in, you know it's Dennis Hopper from Blue Velvet. And I think Hoosiers is a great movie, and I think it's a great performance. It's a subtle performance for Dennis Hopper, which you don't see often. And I'm glad he's nominated. But it should have been 2 nominations for him that year, both Hoosiers and Blue Velvet. He probably would have won. Because people would have been like, that can't be the same guy because he's so lovable in one and so hated in the other, if you will. So anyway, back to what you were saying.
Well, I was just going to say, like, the next one on my kind of top 5 list is Joe Pesci from Goodfellas. And it's a situation where you've got an actor who's obviously worked with this director before. He's obviously worked with his co-actor before. And I couldn't see that role done with anyone else. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely true.
So you have this person, you have this actor you've seen before, and you have this character, and they just marry together so perfectly.
Well, he's like 5'3", first of all. He's a tiny little guy, okay? And he overpowers Ray Liotta, who's like 6'1", a good 25 pounds heavier. I mean, and if you were to line them up, you would think Joe Pesci was the clown of the story and Ray Liotta was the lead, which is sort of true to a degree. But he takes Ray Liotta down in that infamous scene.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's often imitated is because it hits such a core. I just read something about this too. Joe Pesci apparently had a really hard time playing this character because he's such a nice guy. He even said, how do you feel about being nominated for the Oscar? And he said, I hope Al wins, Al Pacino.
Yeah.
I think for Dick Tracy maybe. Was it Dick Tracy?
Yeah.
He said, I hope Al wins. And he was sincere. And his acceptance speech, he walked up, grabbed the Oscar, said thanks, and walked off. You gotta love that. You know, just for that, give him an Oscar just for the best Oscar speech ever, because it was sincere, it was to the point, it was direct, it was professional, and he did his thing. But back to the performance, you still end up liking him after everything he does in that film.
Yep. And you
how is that possible?
Well, and you see there's a couple scenes where you see the limit. So you see the power of him as
the
a
trunk
character.
Scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you also see the limit of his power, and you see the humanistic side of him where he goes and hangs out with his mom.
It's great. That's Martin Scorsese's mom.
Oh, really?
In real life, yeah. She's I think she's in every one
great.
of his films. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Come
so
on,
cool.
sit down. Let's have some pasta.
So that
I got
obviously
some sauce on the stove.
that actually humanizes him too, and it gets you kind of on his side, even though he's about to go do something horrible.
The next time you watch that scene, watch how he presents himself at the table. He properly wipes his mouth. He puts his napkin on his lap. He holds his forks in his. He's a properly educated young man.
Wow.
Who is also a murdering, crazy maniac.
But in his mother's house,
Yep.
he is so straight-laced.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It
makes
great.
the movie for me. Because I was not a huge fan of that movie. I've come to love that film, and I will never say a bad word about Martin Scorsese. Just cannot happen. It's just not in my. I don't think my vocal cords will let me do it. But so I've come to see the power of that film, and it's because of his performance. I kept calling me back because I was like, oh, Joe Pesci, Joe Pesci, Joe Pesci, and I kept watching the movie over and over again, and finally it clicked for me. Instead of seeing what I wanted to see, I was seeing what he was presenting, meaning Scorsese, in the whole film. And so I think it works overall, and it's a great movie. And like I just said, it's an often debated subject with me. And I'm like, hey, I'm good with Pesci, but I'm okay with the film that won that year.
Yeah, definitely. All right, what do you got next?
Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting.
Yep, me too.
1997. It's one of the ones where when I was watching the film, I knew. And unfortunately, that's a really great year. That's Burt Reynolds. And who else that year? As soon as you say it, I'll know it.
I just flipped away from it. Greg Kinnear from As Good as It Gets.
He's
Anthony
excellent.
Hopkins, Amistad.
Excellent.
And Robert Forster from Jackie Brown.
That's a great nomination. He's
Yeah.
a standout in that film.
He is.
I'm glad he's got that nomination. But for me, it's funny because it's the opposite of everything Robin Williams has ever done, with the exception of the baseball scene where he talks about going to the baseball game and he imitates the baseball game. It's over the top, like we're used to with Robin Williams. And other than Awakenings, we really don't see that often. His crazy, zany, kind of over the top characters. This one's very reserved and pulled back. But when Matt Damon is criticizing his painting and he turns around and he grabs him by the throat and he says, "I will end you." I'm like, what did Robin? Okay, believe him. Like, shut up, young man. This guy, and he's a therapist. A therapist is not supposed to make physical contact with their patients.
He's also not supposed to fly off the handle like
ever.
That. Yeah.
And then, he has no big moments. He has no big cry scenes. He has no big dramatic scenes. It's, of course, the bench scene, which, of course, since he passed, everybody has, put flowers and stuff on the bench, which I think is great. I think that's exactly what I would do if I lived in that part of Boston. But the way that he just explains to Matt Damon why he did what he did, everything I can find out about you, I can read in a book. Why do you want me to try to help you? I'm not going to waste my time. He doesn't do any of that BS analytical therapist stuff that all the other ones do. And they're a bit exaggerated, the other therapists that he goes to, for a purpose. But there's such grounding in the way Robin Williams handles the last scene in particular. It's not your fault. It could have been so sappy and tear, cry. It's time to cry, audience. It could have. But, dude, I pushed my feet in the seat in front of me, and I held on, man, because my toes were curling. I was like, because I bought that he was making it better for Matt Damon's character just by what he was saying. Because Matt Damon says, "Not you, Sean. Don't do that to me. Don't BS me." And he goes, "It's not your fault." He continues to repeat that. In anybody else's hands, it could have just been washed away. Unfortunately, the same year Burt Reynolds was nominated, and who would have ever put Burt Reynolds an Oscar nominee? But we've just said a couple times there are a few people on the list of nominees that you would never expect to be an Academy Award nominated actor. Burt Reynolds might be one of those guys. Huge movie star, taking nothing from him, and his performance any other year would have won.
Yep.
Any other year. And he won almost all the other accolades, except for the big ones like the SAG and the Golden Globe and stuff like that. He won everything else. So I feel bad for him, but it's Robin Williams from Good Will Hunting. So
that's right. My next one that I've got written down is Javier Bardem from No Country for Old Men. That's I guess you could call it a quintessential Best Supporting Actor nominee and win, because he brings, the character itself, like on the page, I'm guessing was dynamic.
Word for word like that.
Yeah. So
literally.
You're saying he didn't bring very much to it
then. No.
Okay.
The opposite. It's written very well, and the lines are almost exactly the same. But when you see, I read it after I saw it. So
you read the screenplay?
No, I read the book.
Oh, that's right.
I read the book. I was confused about a part of that film, and I was like, wait, something's missing here. And there is. They took one little thing out that I don't think they should have taken out. That's my opinion, for whatever it's worth. No, I saw it first, so I can't separate myself. So when I'm reading it, I'm hearing Javier Bardem's friendo. When he's talking like that, now it's forever. But when you read it, you're thinking that's exactly how it should have sounded. That's exactly how it should have sounded. And there's something so subtly menacing about his character, and it's all in that first epic kill. It's that look on his face. See, I don't even really want to talk to Javier Bardem because of that performance. Yeah. Like if we met up somewhere and we could have a conversation,
I'd be afraid he's going to kill you.
Looking over my eye at him like, what? But before we go continue on with him, we skipped over one for me, Benicio del Toro in Traffic. Yet again on the list of non-English speaking parts that won. He's one of 5 or 6, I think. And I re-saw it like a year ago because I thought to myself, wait, he speaks English in that. What? No, he speaks. He has one line. His performance is so on point that I thought he was just speaking the language I understood. I mean, I know I read subtitles, but in my mind, I remember him speaking English because there was a trivia question: who are the 5 or 6 Oscar winners who won for a non-English speaking part? And I didn't name him because I was like, he speaks English. He's got 6 or 7 lines in English. One. He doesn't speak but one. And I went back and watched it. And then, of course, there's the car scene where he has that mini little... Have you seen Traffic?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The mini little nervous breakdown. And Soderbergh is so smart that he pulls away immediately. He doesn't indulge that moment at all. But you get enough. And I think it maybe is 30 seconds long, maybe. I'd like to time that actually. And it's one of those big cry moments, but it's like 30 seconds long, and Sonnenberg cuts it. But it's so powerful that it's undeniable that he should have won. So,
all right, great. Christoph Waltz, you got him anywhere?
I don't.
Okay, so
I
think it's interesting that he's kind of tied to Quentin Tarantino. Obviously, Quentin Tarantino at some point brought him over from Germany or Austria or where, I don't even know where he's from, but I think he's a good actor, and I think he's able to bring something to these Quentin Tarantino roles, the Inglourious Basterds role and the Django Unchained role, that are different. I think you have to look at him as the actor in both of those movies, and I appreciate him more in each of them because of that.
Do you think that the roles are that separate, though? Don't you think it's sort of the same character to a degree?
As far as like being a more charismatic storytelling
No,
type
I guess maybe because of his accent, it's hard for me to... I thought he was way impressive in Django Unchained. Mm-hmm. He got the nomination. Here's the thing. I cannot objectively speak about that year. Silver Linings Playbook. Robert De Niro.
It's over.
I can't. Yeah, for me it is. I'm sorry. It just is.
What about Philip Seymour Hoffman in The Master?
And Tommy Lee Jones in Lincoln.
Yep.
For me, I see why Christoph Waltz won, but I don't think he did anything above and beyond what he did in Inglourious Basterds. He's 2 for 2. He's 2 nominations, 2 wins. Not taking it away from him. Good for him. He's fantastic in Django.
So there are similarities to the roles, and even down to like there's certain scenes, certain dialogue scenes that are similar. Something's flashing in my head. Do you remember the scene that he has with the Jewish woman who's the head of the theater, Shoshana?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
With Shoshana, where they're eating Danish with the cream on it.
Yes.
And there's kind of close-ups of the cream and close-up, and he's kind of talking back and forth with her, and it's a tense scene. And then you've got a similar scene. It's not as tense, but you've got a similar scene in the bar where there's close-ups of him
and the foam of the beer,
and swiping it off.
It's his best scene in that movie. He's great in that movie. He's great in the scene with Leonardo DiCaprio. Anything could happen, anything's possible, whatever the line is. He's great.
And then there's obviously that other tense scene with them about the phrenology, but that's more Leonardo DiCaprio, I think, than anybody else. But,
well, let me ask you this. Change the subject, sort of. Do you think Leonardo DiCaprio should have been nominated for Django Unchained?
I think he should have been nominated over Christoph Waltz.
What?
Because it wasn't. So I was glad to see Christoph Waltz in that role that was something other than Inglourious Basterds. And then after that, I saw Carnage.
I did too.
Which
he's fantastic in it.
He's great in.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that made me feel a little bit more at ease. I mean, obviously, he was a successful actor in Germany or somewhere in Europe. I think he's Austrian, but I think he acted in Germany mainly.
We should have a correction show.
Yeah.
There's a couple corrections from our horror show that we need to fix, so we'll go back and fix this too.
I feel bad to just like wash over all of Europe and say it's all the same, But anyway, so I mean, I feel like he's definitely a good actor. I also saw him in Green Hornet, and
I think he's great.
But there wasn't much there for him. I think
he's the bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. So, but he's also the bad guy in Inglourious Basterds, and he does much more there. But I think a lot of that has to do with the tension of the scenes
and
have
the
to do with
character he's playing
the character
too. He's playing a Nazi. It's a given. He's a bad guy.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I mean, similarly, the bad guy in Django Unchained, being Leonardo DiCaprio, he's obviously playing against type, in finger quotes. He's playing against type, and he's able to hold it down.
For me, it's a bit overdrawn. It's a bit over the top. When I saw it, my buddy was like, he should have been nominated. He should be nominated. I saw the film after the nomination came out, and I was okay with him not being nominated for that.
So what about Wolf of Wall Street? Was that overdrawn?
No.
Okay.
I would have voted for him with that, over Matthew McConaughey, over everybody. Because it is so over the top that it never...
You didn't feel like the Calvin Candy was overwritten or was written to be over the top?
I don't know. For me, it just didn't work as well. I saw, for some reason, I thought he was miscast a little bit. I thought he did great for what he had, but I can see why he didn't get the nomination.
Like stunt casting more
than... No. Maybe a little, but no, I don't think they work that way. I don't think Tarantino works that way. I don't think Leonardo DiCaprio works that way. I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah. But it doesn't strike me as, let's put Leonardo DiCaprio in a movie where he says the N-word 1,000 times and see what people are going to react to it. Let's shock them. I don't think it's done like that. I think that's the character. I think that's how the character would speak. This is an often debated subject. I think that's the way the character would speak. I don't know. I didn't live at that time. But I've seen that character done, and sort of the same type of character, the plantation owner and the one who has no soul, the one who thinks things are objects that are human beings. Mm-hmm. I've seen it done, and I don't know. Maybe I'll watch it again and I'll get why everybody was kind of upset he wasn't nominated. Mm-hmm. They thought it was a snub. For me, not so much.
But I mean, if you want to look at a base character, then you look at the Don Johnson character from that movie. I mean, he was exactly that, just a very base.
Yeah, he was perfect though.
Yeah, I mean, he was, because he had 5 lines and they were all horrible.
And that's probably more stunt casting than anything.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, but it worked.
No, it was good.
It worked. Tarantino can do that though. He brought Travolta back.
That's true.
So.
That's true.
But anyway, I find it interesting that you thought Leonardo DiCaprio should have been nominated over the person who won the Oscar. I will admit I was shocked he won.
I think Inglourious Basterds, he definitely should have won.
He won everything, including the Cannes Film Festival award.
Well,
won
that's
everything.
Great. Yeah. But then the Django Unchained one, I mean, I think that just solidified my opinion of him as an actor, as opposed to me being like, he needs to be given a statue for this.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. There's a philosophy that you can split the vote, that maybe the 4 other people took all the votes and he came through with the most because everybody, I don't know if that's possible. I can't statistically break that down in my mind, but I have no problem with him winning. It just wouldn't have been my pick.
Mm-hmm. The last one I have is Christian Bale from 2010, Fighter.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You skipped one for me.
Okay, what do you got?
Heath Ledger.
Oh, I did have him written down. Why did I?
Do you have him?
Oh, yeah, okay. So I skipped past Javier Bardem and went straight to Christoph Waltz. I do have Heath Ledger written down. And then it's kind of moved around for me. As far as my 5, I think, I don't know, when we talked about it initially, I think I might have had Ledger in there, but then Bale may have slipped in.
Well, you love The Fighter, so
I do love The
understandable.
Fighter.
Let's talk about Heath Ledger real quick. Somebody once said that the only reason why he won is because he passed away. And I went, what? And this was a comic book fan. At a comic book convention, I was waiting tables at a restaurant, and they had a comic book convention in where I was living. And he came in with another buddy and started talking to him about comics, and they're very specific people they know a lot. Mm-hmm. And I said, it's really great that Heath Ledger won for playing. And he said he would not have won if he had lived. And I went, what? And he goes, he would not have won because it's a comic book character. A comic book character would never win an Oscar. I completely disagree with that.
Well, I can see where he's coming from. Yeah. He's got a chip on his shoulder because he's a comic book fan, obviously.
Yeah, but
he's at a comic
when
book
you
convention.
Celebrate that then?
Well, but
they etched out a character so definitive that it was real. I saw him walk off the screen as the Joker, and I'm a huge Batman fan. There are 2 things people know about me: I'm a U2 fan and I'm a Batman fan. That they know it from day one. Mm-hmm. Ask my parents. It's easy. So I know the Joker. I've read comic books. I know the Joker. I've seen all the movies. I love these characters. Mm-hmm. That was something I had never envisioned, never thought of, never imagined anything. And it's the one scene in the very beginning when he goes, you want to see a trick? Mm-hmm. And he puts the pencil down and slams the guy's head into it.
Yeah.
And then he goes, wow. I was like, what is that? Nolan made it real. Mm-hmm. He wrote a real character that was based on a human being that completely had no scruples, no morals. Anarchy was his name, period. And I bought it, hook, line, and sinker. The makeup is incidental. The voice is incidental. And the way that he handled that, Heath Ledger, I saw nothing of Heath Ledger in it. You balance that with Brokeback Mountain and anything else that Heath Ledger, that's not the same guy. Mm-hmm. I think he lost his mind a little bit. They say that he went over the edge playing the character. Other people say he was energized and more alive during that shoot than ever. Who knows? Mm-hmm. It's all going to be urban legend again someday. Sure. But for me personally, I think it's limiting in your mind to just say, because it's a comic book character, it shouldn't win an Oscar. Mm-hmm. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, so for me, I think that there were choices that he made that could be seen as either over the top or could be seen as enhancing, like the licking of the lips and things like that. See, and so when he makes that choice, he makes the audience make a choice. Either you love it or you hate it. And so I didn't hate it, but well, I guess I loved it then. But I mean, as far as that logic is concerned, but to me, I guess maybe I'm more of a I'm not an actor, so I would have never. The thing that I admire about that is that I would have never thought that. Like, first of all, that's probably not in the script. Oh, he licks his lips and then he has a particular mannerism like this. That's probably not in the script.
No, it came out.
So he's handling the mannerisms himself, and so that's what he brought to that character, I think. And also, I mean, the how he carried himself. He also was trying to differentiate himself. I think he was trying to differentiate himself from Jack Nicholson.
I don't think it crossed his mind.
You don't think so?
No, I think he walked into Christopher Nolan's office and Christopher Nolan went, "What do you want, pretty boy? What do you want?" There's no way. Not one person would buy you as the Joker. And why so serious? Whatever he did in that audition.
Do you think he sold himself to Christopher Nolan as opposed to Christopher Nolan coming to him?
Absolutely. And I have no idea what the truth of it is. But when I heard he was cast, I was like, what? Okay, I'm obviously not going to judge this because I don't understand this. And I've learned to do that because I've been wrong so many times about casting choices. I went, oh, that person has defined that person for me for the rest of my life. This is one of those moments. I mean, if he was trying to make anything different than what Jack Nicholson did, I don't think it was a conscious effort. It might have been some kind of, subconscious effort, not really knowledge of it. What I think he tried to do is he tried to make a character that would walk off the screen. I don't think the Joker from the first Batman film could walk off the screen and just be in real life. No. This guy, the bank scene proves it. Because he's not in makeup. Yeah, he has a mask on. He also is not in makeup in one of the scenes of the movie, which I thought was interesting. When they're
the hospital.
Well, no, he's in makeup there. When he's marching with the police, he doesn't have the makeup on. He has the scars, but he doesn't have the makeup on. So I thought that was interesting that the makeup was a choice because, of course, the Joker's origin is, well, it's changed over years.
It depends on
but it was nothing like what Nolan wrote. And his brother, isn't it his brother? No.
Yeah, Jonah.
Yeah. So anyway, for me personally, I think it's, and once again, it's, actor and engineer.
David Goyer also wrote it too.
Yes. Sorry. I knew that Goyer guy was in there because I think of his name when I think of it. No, it's okay. I didn't think of it. But that's why this show for me is interesting because you come from such a technical background and I come from such an emotional background that you really like smaller nuances. And I like it when somebody makes such a large choice that it makes sense and it can only be the licking of the lips now. And the way he brushes his hair back.
Yeah.
It can only be that now. If anybody else did it, like if that was a play and they reoccurred it and anybody else did it, I'd be like, yeah, do the hair scene because it's just infamous at this point. Yeah.
And then, the last one I was with Christian Bale, which we don't really have to talk about him very much because, I mean,
we've talked about this film a lot.
Talked about it a lot. And, it seems like either this film or in general, I guess the David O. Russell comes up very often.
Well, so be it for me. But let me ask you this. We just went off on a little 5-minute thing about over-the-top performances. You don't think Christian Bale's performance is a bit showy and a bit over-the-top in The Fighter? I don't. But I know people who thought that it was too manic, and I was like, he's a crackhead, dude.
Yeah, exactly. What? No, I don't think so. And also, I mean, there's something about Boston movies.
Yeah. It's like sports movies.
Yeah.
They connect.
And I have like from the movies I've seen that are set in Boston with Bostonians, I have kind of an idea. I don't really know anybody from Boston, but I kind of have an idea of how that works, how those dynamics work. I know it's largely Catholic, so you've got it's centered on family, and it's sometimes to its detriment, which The Fighter points out, and so that played into my perception of Boston and Bostonians, and so I felt like it was on point.
Well, for me, it's first of all, when I first saw the movie, I knew Christian Bale was in it. I knew it was the new David O. Russell film. I registered all that. I saw that opening sequence when they were on the couch together, and then the names come up, and I was like, wait, Christian Bale's in? Is that Christian Bale? I was like, what?
That's half of Christian Bale.
Yeah. That's first. It's the last scene when he's talking to Amy Adams, and he says, we can't do this. He can't do this without you, but I'm going to be there too. And she says, well, you're basically a junkie crackhead. I don't trust you. And he goes, you shouldn't. I mean, he doesn't say that, but he looks at her like, and she's like, you got cake on you. And he's like, yeah, I do. I'm a human being. The cake is a symbol for being a human being. People drop food on themselves all the time. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I don't think so, because I think filmmakers of high quality look at things like that, and things are symbols and metaphors for things in life, and you can learn about yourself through how they register in your own life. For me, that is. And that's that last scene, how he holds it together. It could have been over the top. It could have been, please come back, we need you. He holds it down, and he just basically goes, we need you, we're not going to do it without you. Come along, you got to come along. And because of his junkie past, she doesn't trust him, but something in his voice tells her he's trying to do better. He might fall off.
He's turned a corner, whether the corner is going to be the straight.
Yeah, whether he's going to turn the corner again. Yeah, who knows? So the last person I have on my list is last year's winner, Jared Leto.
Okay.
I'd heard so much about his performance. It was hard. I hate when I can't separate what the outside frequency is saying about something. Sometimes it ruins it for me. But not a moment was ruined by the acclaim that he was getting for this film, Dallas Buyers Club.
Don't you feel like it's kind of like a transformative type thing, like the Heath Ledger?
Absolutely. Yeah. But in somebody sarcastically online, because you can online, you never have to face your bigotries or your prejudices. And I'm not saying this person had any homophobia or anything like this, but they said, is it like a person who's playing somebody with special needs, because they have special needs, they should win the Oscar? People have this bias about, if you play somebody with special needs, then you're going to win the Oscar. And it does happen, and it is, I personally think a physical impairment is hard to pull off because it is a physical impairment, and you don't have that normally. So it was hard what Daniel Day-Lewis did. It was hard what he did. And for me, it's the same way in this. Somebody said, oh, so he played a gay guy who's a transvestite, transsexual, drug addict. Big deal. He should win the Oscar. Yes, that's exactly why. Because if you had ever once said to me, Jared Leto, who I always thought it was Leto, there was a whole radio show on how you pronounce his name. But it's Leto.
Took care of that.
I know, right? Because he's in Fight Club, small role, but Requiem for a Dream. If you had ever said that guy's going to play that character, I would have been like, oh, okay, I'm going to trust it because I trust him and the guy from Panic Room. Yep. It's not the same guy. And, of course, he has a big showy cry scene. And it's touching. It's the scene they show. It's what I call the Oscar scene. It's the scene that they show.
The cut.
Shia LaBeouf has 3 of them in Fury. Just saying. Again. But it's the scene where he goes to his father's office to ask for the money. And he's dressed down.
Yep.
And I thought, wait, why did they make that choice? He has to dress for his father. He's, of course, a transsexual pre-operative transsexual. And he dresses as a male.
Well, but I think a lot of that's my house, my rules.
Absolutely.
And he's respectful of that.
Absolutely. And that comes across in one line. And when his father says, you're choosing to be this way, and he says it's not a choice. He's not going to argue with his father. He's not going to defend who he knows he is. He's not going to wave the flag of prejudice and homophobia. He's not going to do any of that. He's going to simply state the fact, I am who I am. I'm not here for that purpose. I've dressed like this to show you I can rise above all of this. He says it all in one line. I was like, he's winning the Oscar. Forget about it.
Yep. All right. Well, the last thing I'll talk about, and maybe it's a little anticlimactic, but I think it needs to be brought up.
Sure.
Jonah Hill, 2 nominations.
And deserved both of them.
I agree. And so there's something, and I don't think either one was stunt casting.
Not at all.
I think it was.
He begged for the part. He took scale,
like $40,000.
$60,000.
Was it 60? Okay.
Yes.
For the Wolf of Wall Street role.
Yes.
So to me, it's him. It's other people, Bennett Miller and Martin Scorsese and the casting directors, obviously seeing something in him that most people might not have seen.
I saw it in Superbad. I saw it. I said, there's something special. This is a movie. This should be a dick and fart joke movie. This is what this movie is supposed to be. But those two performances, Michael Cera and his, in Superbad, rise above that.
Yep.
There's something so touching about that scene, you know.
Boop scene?
Yeah, the boop. Yeah, I mean, you know, classic movie moment happening right in front of our eyes. I agree with you 150% on Jonah Hill.
Yeah.
I don't think it's stunt casting. I don't
think so either.
And what I find amazing is in Moneyball, he's just a scene stealer. You know,
he is.
He's a scene stealer.
He's up against Philip Seymour Hoffman. He's got scenes with Philip Seymour Hoffman
steals them
and Brad Pitt
by not saying anything.
You going to leave this door open?
Yeah.
I mean,
right. Oh, I'm supposed to speak now?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I point to you, you speak. Okay, now I'm pointing to you. You know, and he doesn't speak. He's charming. He's wallpaper, basically.
Yeah.
But he stands out. There's something.
He's playing, and especially in Moneyball, he's kind of like our entry into this world. Like he's not a part of that. I mean, in some ways he is a part of the world initially, but he's getting into this world, and so he's realizing these things at the same time we're realizing them in some ways.
Absolutely.
And so he's our connection.
And I want to tell you two things really quick. The second part to that was then he bumps it up a notch, a whole lot of notches, with a character-driven performance in Wolf of Wall Street. When he tells that girl, your money's strapped to your body, you work for me.
Yeah.
I saw that scene on the Tonight Show. Went to my room and I said, Jonah Hill will be a 2-time Oscar nominee. He goes, get out of here. I'm telling you, I don't know what it is. I haven't seen the movie. And the nominations came out and I watched them that year. I don't usually get up and watch them. Yeah. I watched it and his name flashed and I said, I don't want to be rightist, but I'm right. I knew it. And the second thing is that apparently I forget if it was MTV or some Entertainment Tonight, some entertainment show was repeating the fact that he was an Oscar nominee. Jonah Hill is nominated for Moneyball. Jonah Hill, Oscar nominee, Jonah Hill. And they were kind of dissing on him. And he passed them in the line on the way into the Oscars. And he said, I'm not going to talk to you. And they said, why not? And he's kind of kidding around at the same time. He said, you dissed on me the whole entire time. Where am I at right now? What am I getting ready to do? He said, I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you. Jonah Hill, Academy Award nominee, 2 times. So I'm glad. I don't think that's anticlimactic. I'm actually very happy that's the way we're getting this show because he is quintessential supporting actor in both those 2 films.
Definitely. All right. Well, you guys can check us out online. Our website is actorandengineer.com. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/actorandengineer. And on Twitter, we are @actorengineer. And we will see you next week.
Until then.
Bye.